Getting Ahead in a Just Getting By world is a group learning experience that involves 12 investigators, we call them, with a facilitator who never teaches. And the group meets 16 times, and they get to take a real hard look at uh, all the things that are going on. And they look at what are the causes of poverty. They take a look at their own resources, their stability. And so they go through this together, and they have long, deep conversations. And at the end of this, uh, they make smart plans and goals and begin to pursue them. Uh, the beauty of it is that they bond together and they want to keep meeting. And along the way, they learn how to get along with people that are middle class and in wealth, and they meet leaders. And post Getting Ahead, they get together for meals and so on. And all that social capital adds up to a real sense of power and an ability to contribute to the community. And that's what's so exciting. This is happening in over 40 states in the US and in other countries, and we know that it really works. And then to add this element of working with people that have experienced ACEs, it's a perfect fit, a perfect match. And it strengthens the community. It actually changes the culture of communities. So that's the beauty of it. Is I think Adrian was saying earlier that there's sort of a divisiveness in this country, but there isn't when you do this. This brings everybody together in a really healthy way. So it's a real joy to be doing this kind of work.
My name is Adrian Elder. I am co-author with Phil DeVol on the Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement. And we are really excited to reach out specifically to parent partnership advisory committees and really any organization that's trying to improve quality and advance family voice, really listening to individuals with lived experience. We see that the Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement really helps to advance that leadership, especially among peer support group graduates. When we started Getting Ahead ACEs or Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement in Oklahoma City, we had individuals that graduated and that became extremely active in the community, and now they are in positions of statewide leadership. And so seeing how those, like you had mentioned, doing some individual changes, they're then able to influence their organizational change, kind of quality improvement, and working at the community level and now in policy, specifically around peer recovery and how important support groups are to wrap around those families. And really, it goes back to that high octane fuel for change. And so now she's able to share her story of recovery. She has her daughter back, and she is now a peer recovery support specialist at her organization. She was just promoted, and then now she's on the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth Parent Advisory Board. And so her name is Sunny. So look forward to highlighting her as we move through this work. But she's just one great success story of how Getting Ahead with ACEs has helped advance here that in Oklahoma City Wiz. So Phil, where do you see Getting Ahead with the ACEs supplement advancing those leadership skills?
Well, first of all, understand that people that are living in this world want to give back. And as soon as they're done with Getting Ahead, there's 18 sessions that they're going to go through. They want to give back, and they've made connections with people from around the community that are helping to deliver the program. And they know what the problems are. And they are the ones that need to be at the planning and decision-making tables. And they do join. And the idea is that they become really influential. Their voice is so important. So this adds energy to everything they do post Getting Ahead. And again, it's exactly what peer support groups need.
So happy to talk quickly to the Handle with Care communities across the country. Handle with Care is a simple strategy that law enforcement, schools, and mental health providers are using to connect children with resources after a traumatic event. And how we see peer support groups being a really important tool for schools is that really provides some wraparound supports, reduces sources of stress, increases responsive relationships, and also builds core life skills. And so we see Getting Ahead with the ACEs module as a wonderful way for schools to incorporate that. Phil, I'd love to turn it over to you so you can share a little more.
Sure thing. My thought is that the workbook, Getting Ahead and Just Getting By World, is a good thing to attach the ACEs investigations to. So this is a workbook done with a facilitator. People meet 18 times to do this supplement. And people that are in this are the ones that are defining what the problems are. They do self-assessments on their stability and their resources. And this will be a new assessment about the ACEs piece as well. And these groups that meet come out of there with a real willingness to give back to their communities and with all the skills it takes to become problem solvers there.
This video is really targeted to all the frontline family engagement specialists that we have across the country, and really anyone that has a caseload of families that's experiencing instability. And what we see as an opportunity is that if the frontline family engagement specialists want to become a facilitator of a peer support group, it will reduce sources of stress, it will increase responsive relationships, and it will build core life skills. And so, Phil, I want to turn it over to you. Can you share why the Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement is a great fit for that?
Well, it is because, for one thing, we pay a stipend for people to come. And it's usually $25 for every session. And that's just enough to help them get through the day. You know, so money doesn't flow real smoothly for people that are in poverty, for example. So we have childcare in some places that do this, and transportation. So, and sometimes meals. So they're building up a lot of relationships as they go in a very safe place. It's a closed group with a facilitator, and people get to know each other really well. It's a perfect place to get started on a difficult topic.
We are really wanting to reach out to family resource centers across the country. It is a framework that a lot of communities are using to increase coordinated services, and also a location for peer support groups. We find that that's a really meaningful way to engage families experiencing toxic stress, experiencing a lot of instability. And so we'd love to hear from Phil DeVol on how he thinks Getting Ahead with the ACEs supplement would benefit those communities.
Well, as it turns out, Getting Ahead is always offered in the context of community systems that have bought in. So there are places or sectors that are involved in doing what we call bridges work or Getting Ahead work. And so those organizations are all part of this in the first place. So when we do this melding of the issues around ACEs with the work that we're doing on bridges on that side, you already have a strong support system, and you would be engaging them and they would be engaging you. And all of this could turn into something that's so much better for people that have experienced ACEs.
Yes, and the family resource centers usually provide the child care, family meal, stipends, helps with transportation. Again, it's such a great way of complementing the work, along with parent advisory committees and advancing leadership for individuals with lived experience. Community coalitions across the country who are becoming trauma informed. It's quite the journey, and the important momentum around including individuals with lived experience. And would love to turn it over to Phil so he can share how Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement as a peer support group, how they remove barriers for participation, and maybe how coalitions could incorporate that.
Well, usually people coming into Getting Ahead and Getting Ahead with ACEs are living in really unstable kind of environments. So, we're able to provide a stipend for them to come and transportation, childcare, and those kind of things. But the people that are going through this and that have the lived experience are so necessary to have as part of your coalition that we see them as problem solvers in the first place. And they need to be at the table, decision-making and planning tables in the community to strengthen all the work that we do.
And I think, some of the coalitions are making extra efforts to remove those barriers. So, childcare, a meal, a stipend, those are critical things for individuals that are facing adversity to make that space and time for them to participate. This video is to reach out to policy makers and advocates across the country that are really trying to advance trauma-informed policy, procedures, and practices. We believe that individuals with lived experience, they need to be part of this process. They are the high octane fuel for change. The stories they share, the barriers that they're experiencing, but more importantly, some of the solutions that they are able to offer. So I'd like to turn it over to Phil DeVol so he can share more about how the Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement can advance your work.
Well, people that go through Getting Ahead as investigators are learning that the change that needs to take place has to happen at 4 levels. They might need to make some changes themselves, but then it turns out that institutions need to make changes. So do communities, and so do policy makers. So we go at all of those things, and we have everybody at the table. So people from all classes, races, sectors, and political persuasions are getting into this. So that's what gives it the real power to make changes in the community.
That question of, how do we get started? How do we bring all these pieces of the puzzle together regarding, childcare and family meal and stipends and transportation and facilitators and, where is it hosted? And I think that, what we found in communities that are taking this on is that it's an opportunity to bring organizations together. They do feel unified. They have a shared vision of helping their families and communities. And actually in our Getting Ahead ACEs supplement, we actually have a sample partnership agreement where it is a checklist. And each agency can basically check what they feel comfortable with providing and then pass it on to the next agency. And maybe they can fill in the gaps, and maybe a third one can fill in the rest of the gaps. And when you have that kind of combined approach, it takes the stress and the load off, and it increases that collaboration. And so we're really excited to see that happen across the country.
I would say that there's really 2 audiences we speak to here. And one is the audience that's really concerned about ACEs. And the other audience is the one that is really worried about poverty. And so from our side, when people want to get involved in this work, they start out by going through Bridges training based on the book Bridges Out of Poverty. And then they have a new way of thinking about working across class lines and understanding each other. And people aren't as judgmental about each other after they go through Bridges. In fact, they have an understanding and they can make relationships across class lines. And so people in wealth are trained, leaders in the community, the people that run the institutions are trained with books for them. And then there's Getting Ahead for people that are in poverty. So what happens is, I think that the real energy that comes is being able to see each other all as problem solvers that are all needed at the table. And as I said before, it changes relationships. Now, to add that to the issue of people who've had adverse experiences is just strengthening the whole approach. And it's going to make our communities that much stronger and that much healthier to do this, bringing these 2 populations together.
The Harvard's Center on the Developing Child, they talk a lot about the 3 principles to improve outcomes for children and families. And the three principles that they, are promoting to incorporate in all policies and practices is reducing sources of stress, increasing positive and responsive relationships, and building core life skills. And so when you look on their website, there's this beautiful circle with those three interlocking principles, and it shows how that improves all outcomes. And what we have talked about in other videos is really just how Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement incorporates those three principles. And so when we talk about reducing sources of stress, Getting Ahead provides a safe space. It provides the child care, the family meal, the stipend, the transportation. And that second principle about improving responsive or increasing responsive relationships, Getting Ahead has, over 18 to 20 weeks, that consistent weekly meetings where they actually start building amazing relationships with each other. They start friendships our lifelong friendships are created. And then that third principle of strengthening those core life skills, Getting Ahead provides that. And, every week there's a different module on building resources and executive functioning skills. And so it's nice to see that best practices across the country recognize those three principles, and that it has been incorporated. It has been a part of Getting Ahead, and how the Getting Ahead with ACEs supplement is just that, the extra piece that kind of ties some things together for trauma-informed communities. So the one thing that really stands out to me is as we are looking at adversity, I think a lot of communities have a kind of a shotgun approach, and a lot of communities are divided with the various different approaches to combat those adversities, whether that's poverty or unemployment or domestic violence or the variety of ACEs that any family or community is experiencing. And I think where peer support groups like Getting Ahead with the ACEs supplement, it creates that shared vision. I mean, it creates a shared strategy, creates a intentional safe space and time for families that have compounded adversities to kind of unravel a lot of that, and to pick where they want to start, and that they are surrounded with supports. They're surrounded with amazing positive relationships that they are building in their community, and again building those core life skills, while at the same time connected with community leaders that can address some of those systemic barriers. So I just see it as a very unifying approach, and love to see that communities across the country, especially those that are becoming trauma informed, incorporating that into their work.
I just think it's interesting that people in poverty experience all kinds of trauma too. And it's interesting to me that veterans have been using this and finding it helpful. And people coming out of prison are using it. So I think that there's something in the methodology where we don't tell people what to do, but they discover what to do. And they are the ones that make the argument for change. We're not ever telling someone what to do. And I think so much of that is a relief to people that have been in settings where people have all the answers for them. And that might be the secret sauce that makes it work, is that the group works on these things together. So I see that as central to the success of this work.
So we invite you to our next training to learn more how we can help each other advance our work. This is definitely a team effort, and appreciate you being a part of this work. So thank you so much.